The news is official. The Indianapolis Colts have benched Anthony Richardson. Joe Flacco will start this Sunday. We'll talk about it here up next on No Buts About It. All right, everyone. Welcome to No Buts About It. I am Josh Butts, and today we are going to be talking about Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson getting benched for Indianapolis Colts quarterback Joe Flacco. Now, if you haven't really been following along with this because you're not a Colts fan or just haven't had time to keep up with all the media going on in the world, that's fine. That's why we make these videos. That's why you should subscribe, to be honest, because we do our best to put out as much information as we can. But anyway, let's talk about Anthony Richardson. So Anthony Richardson has obviously struggled this year. I think everyone who is an NFL fan knows that. Anthony Richardson has a 44.4% completion percentage. He's under 1,000 yards going into week 9, 958 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He only has 3 games where he has over a 50 passer rating. 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins, he had a 59.2. The week before that versus the Steelers, he had a 116.7. And then going all the way back to week 1 versus the Texans, he had a 101.2. However, we're not going to talk about week 1 against the Texans. We're going to talk about this past Sunday's game against the Texans because that is really what led to Richardson's benching. And I had been a defender of Anthony Richardson for a while, to be honest, because I understood the frustrations that Colts fans have, and I still do understand those frustrations of this guy cannot seem to pass the intermediate to short ball. He can only make the deep passes. He can only make the deep throws. And that is true. We have seen that time and time again. Alec Pierce has had, honestly, like a career boom underneath Anthony Richardson because Alec Pierce's whole game is the deep ball pretty much in the Colts offense. And that's all Anthony Richardson can throw. However, Michael Pittman Jr. has seemingly taken a step back when Anthony Richardson is on the field. The other thing is he just isn't accurate. He's overthrown guys multiple times. There are multiple touchdowns that or would be touchdowns in my head that just like there's 2 against the 80 Mitchell should have this season, I believe, because he was wide open and the ball just got overthrown and it didn't need to be overthrown. There's multiple short passes where he just, beams it, and you don't need, if you're throwing 3 yards in front of you, you don't need to throw it a million miles an hour. It's going to bounce off the receiver's chest. Don't make it harder for them to catch it. But we knew that. We knew that Anthony Richardson was a raw prospect. He had only started a season at Florida. He was really drafted so high because he was an athletic and is an athletic specimen. He is similar to Trevor Lawrence, just a guy who, you can't coach those physical traits. However, now we're running into an issue where the non-physical traits are becoming the issue, or becoming the problem. And this is where I'm kind of like, okay, I cannot defend Richardson here. If we want to talk about, he's struggling in the NFL. This is his second season as a rookie. Colts fans, you just kind of gotta kind of push through it because you drafted him so high. We got to find out if he can develop. That's a different conversation because you have Anthony Richardson now. You spent a 4th round or a 4th overall pick on him last year in the 1st round. So you've got him. Might as well find out what's happening with him. That's a different conversation, though. My issue is against the Texans on Sunday, he pulled himself from the game with about 2 minutes and some change before halftime, I believe. And they were 3rd and goal, I want to say, albeit they were out there about the 23-yard line, 20-ish yard line, something like that. So they weren't like super close to the end zone, but they were 3rd and goal. Pulls himself from the game. And you're thinking, okay, maybe he's tired. He had just run around a bunch, and the Texans have a great pass rush with Willie Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter and some other guys over there. Like maybe one of them got to him, maybe he twisted his ankle. Something had to have happened, right? Because quarterbacks don't just pull themselves from the game. Well, after the game, the reporters obviously asked, they're like, hey, what happened there on that play? And he just said, I was just tired. You cannot say that as an NFL quarterback. You cannot say that as a guy who's supposed to be the leader of the locker room, who is supposed to be leading the offense, because you probably were tired, to be honest. You know what? You were running around a ton, being chased by some great players, like I just mentioned, Danielle Hunter, Willie Anderson Jr. I get it. You were probably tired. But you know what? So was everyone else on the offense. The offensive line was tired. The wide receivers were tired. They couldn't pull themselves from the game. You can't either. Jonathan Taylor's probably tired. And speaking of Jonathan Taylor, Joe Flacco comes in for one play. Guess what they do? They hand the ball off to Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson could have done that whether he was tired or not. Like, you can't. That's the part I can't defend. And so now Joe Flacco, who has already had a few starts this year due to Anthony Richardson being injured, and that's a whole other conversation with Anthony Richardson as a prospect. But Joe Flacco is coming. He comes in, hands the ball off. Now he's coming in as the starter, and he has a 65.7% completion with the Colts this year. He has 716 yards. Mind you, 3 games. He has 3 games, and he has only about 200 yards less than what Anthony Richardson has. And he has 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. All 3 of his games, he is above a 50 passer rating, with the Titans game, his last start, October 13th, being his worst at 77.6. So, Anthony, please take this time to learn. Do not take this time as something to be mad about, where you're like, oh, well, how did this happen? How did I get benched? I'm the starter. No. You have to sit back and you have to watch now, because you screwed up, frankly. And I think you know. I hope you know that. I hope you're able to look in the mirror and say, yep, you know what? I screwed up. I'm going to build from this, because you seem like an okay dude. In everything you've done, everything I've read about you, seem like a good dude. And I am rooting for you. I just cannot defend this specific moment. And it now makes sense to me why the Colts are doing this, why they're starting Joe Flacco. Your team is depending on you. Ryan Kelly said he had a conversation with Anthony Richardson, and he didn't go into the details, but basically what he said it was like, hey, like, we're all tired. You cannot be doing that. That looks really bad for the team, which pretty much everything I just said. And Ryan Kelly is a leader on that team as well, one of the better players on the offense. So, and he's gone through rough times as a player. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. Anthony Richardson, it's just like, why can you not just like make things easier? Just make things a little bit easier on me, because I want him to succeed. I really do. But now he has put the Colts in a complicated position where if he can't be an NFL quarterback, that's one thing. Players flunk out as NFL quarterbacks all the time. High draft picks. Like, you could argue the entire 2021 quarterback class from the first round flunked out. Same with 2022. But you can't flunk out because you're not trying. So, one last thing I want to cover. Shane Steichen. He said that the reason that Anthony Richardson subbing himself out would not go into the conversation of whether Joe Flacco would start this week in his press conference. Now, I'm hoping he was covering for Anthony Richardson, because that's the exact reason. That is the reason. That is the thing you should have considered. Because what like before that, you've seen Anthony Richardson struggling. You've seen his stats not look good. He put up a 41.7% against the Dolphins with 129 yards, no touchdown, no interception. Steelers, 75% completion, 71 yards. Like, what did you can't even pretend to say like, oh yeah, he looked pretty good before this. No, he's looked bad all year. Nothing has changed. He just, now subbed himself out. So I'm hoping that was just Shane Steichen covering for Anthony in the media. And the actual conversation was like, hey, no, you need to sit down and watch Joe Flacco. You need to watch what a proven leader looks like and learn from him. That is the conversation Shane Steichen should be having with Anthony Richardson if he hopes for Anthony Richardson to be the quarterback of the future. And Chris Ballard had better hope for Anthony Richardson to be the quarterback of the future, because Chris Ballard has had a lot of success and he's had a lot of misses, but Anthony Richardson would be the biggest miss of his draft class, all of his draft classes, if Anthony Richardson cannot get it together. So Shane Steichen, that should be the conversation he had. We'll see what happens, but ultimately, I get why the Colts are doing this. I think this is a good move for the Colts short term and hopefully long term as well. But Anthony Richardson is going to be the one that determines if it is a good move long term. Is he going to take this moment to learn from what Joe Flacco is doing? Is he going to take this moment to see how Joe Flacco leads? Is he going to take this moment to see how Joe Flacco prepares for games? And look, what am I doing differently? What is going on that is causing me to have these issues and not Joe Flacco? So those are just my thoughts. Chus and I, with Halloween, we're going to try to get a full episode out, hopefully later this week at some point, maybe Friday. But just our schedules aren't really mashing up. But I appreciate you stopping by. I would appreciate it even more if you could drop a subscribe and a like for us. We are just under 50 away from 500, which would be huge for us. Major milestone. I appreciate everyone who has subscribed. If we make it to there by Halloween, which is 2 days away as I'm posting this, I will do a giveaway. It's a long shot, but I think we can do it. I appreciate everyone who has stopped by. Let me know your thoughts on Anthony Richardson down in the comments. And until next time, go do something nice for someone.